Welcome to Stitches in Time, the podcast discussing Doctor Who the way it was meant to be watched, in chronological order, one clip at a time, starting at the Big Bang and ending with the heat death of the universe. I'm Becca, the Matrix Archivist, and I spent the last 12 years of my life meticulously editing the entire televised Doctor Who universe into chronological order.
And I'm Mandy, and I've also been sexy yet unsettling on top of a piano.
That, I believe.
I miss Hentai Con.
Oh.
It was a fantastic convention, if only because it was 21 and up. So it was very chill and the most respectful I have ever been treated as a sexy cosplayer. I was escorted inside the convention because I was taking photos outside, and staff was like, you can't be out here. There are regular people who can see you.
Too sexy.
Think of the normies!
Unfortunately, the hotel the next year Googled what hentai was, and then they weren't allowed back.
I have been to one fetish convention where they literally book the entire hotel, so there is nobody in the building who is not part of that, and apparently they have been reliable in paying that because the hotel has been letting them do it for a while.
Yes, and also joining us, of course, is the lovely Vera Wylde from Council of Geeks.
You should have guessed I immediately launched into talking about a fetish convention. You should have known it was me.
Oh gosh, now it really, if I am doing an impression of you instead of actually having you as a guest, it really seems like I'm just like assuming a lot of things about you and trying, I don't know,
it says a lot about what you think I'm like. And I don't know how to feel about that, honestly.
Trans people are hot. That's just it's just the
trans people are hot. Deal. I'm an acknowledged whore. I mean, like I made this rod for my own back.
And that fetish convention was Gallifrey 1.
Which
I mean, if you stay up late enough.
That is true. The hotel bar gets pretty wild.
So upset knowing that there is a known orgy at this convention, and I have not been invited to it. I'm pretty sure because it's a gay orgy, but still.
That shouldn't matter.
They have enough. There's a lot of man. They can have a Mandy.
And of course, today we're talking about, as you've no doubt guessed, listeners, obviously we're talking about fetishization, so we're clearly talking about the Devil's Chord. But just a little bit of it, just the 3 minutes and 50 seconds of it that takes place in the Maestro's domain.
The sound of a nuclear winter. The purest music of all.
Just the bit of it that shows the threat of a ruined London, a place that will not exist for thousands of years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, obviously. Yeah, we're in 6175 BC, and still random number generating there. But yeah, this is this is our first exposure to Jinx Monsoon, which is everyone who exists should feel lucky to be graced with, because she is fucking incredible in this episode.
It's really good. I love the. They have heard from years from every person being like, Doctor Who should do a musical episode. Like, you want one? You want one? We're gonna have the Beatles sing about a dog. Is that what you want?
I pointed this out when I did my review of this episode, but like that the fake bad Beatles song sounds frightening frighteningly like an actual early Pink Floyd song.
My
Ooh.
hope is, and I don't know enough about Doctor Who to know which one it is, but there's like that one serial that has the Beatles that gets cut out of American releases, and I think that they should just put in the Beatles' "I've Got a Dog" into those
Oh
scenes
my god.
now.
That's maybe I need to do that in stitches. Yeah, that's the episode 1 of The Chase, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, if you want a point of comparison, obviously don't pull it up for this. You'll get copy struck immediately.
Sure.
But look up the Pink Floyd song Bike. Bike. And it is shockingly similar. Except Pink Floyd just sounded like that at the time. This is like, this was, I don't know if you know Pink Floyd at all. But this was like
I know Pink Floyd from when my middle school history teacher decided that he wasn't going to teach us history, but he was going to show us how that Pink Floyd album works with The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, okay. No, this was way ahead of that. So what is generally considered sort of the Pink Floyd heyday was when Roger Waters was their main guy. But before that, for their very first album, they were fronted by a guy named Syd Barrett, who was on a lot of drugs. Like a lot of drugs. And he had to stop being with the band because I think he actually got institutionalized for a little bit. Don't quote me on that, but I think so.
Just when you say he was on a lot of drugs, that has to be a lot of drugs for that to be an issue for a musician, particularly of that era.
In the 60s. Like, here was the thing. He was on all the drugs at the same time. That was the issue.
Mm-hmm. That'll do it.
But yeah, during that era and their first album, Piper at the Gates of Dawn, there is a song called Bike, and it's the same damn thing. I'm actually kind of surprised they didn't get sued. It sounds so similar.
What you're saying is that what happened in this episode with Maestro stealing music did happen, but only for that guy in Pink Floyd.
Yes. In reality, Maestro
only for Pink Floyd.
Only stole music from him.
Is maybe he's the guy from the beginning, like the genius who nobody's ever heard of, that like gets the song sucked out of him. Yeah.
I suppose I should rip this bandage off. I'll try not to harp on it. I am the one outlying queer Doctor Who fan who doesn't really like Maestro very much.
Okay. Hey, you know what?
Fight.
Here's the thing. I'm gonna
say something even more controversial. You're allowed to have opinions and expand upon them. Come at me.
You call yourself a geek on the internet? What is wrong with you?
I know. I'm still new to this. It's
yeah. I mean, we need time to figure out where you live. So keep talking.
Look, here's the thing. I don't think that there's anything wrong with the character or even anything really wrong with the performance. It does not work for me basically because I'm not a huge fan of drag. Mm-hmm. And I say that as someone who used to do drag until I discovered burlesque and went, oh, this fits my sensibilities so much better. It is a very drag performance. It is a very high camp performance. The whole thing is at 11. And I find that personally exhausting and a little dull. There is not
enough. You don't have enough like levels for you to feel the 11.
Yeah, if you go at an 11 and stay there, that's the same as just staying at 1 because there's no variance. It's just always at the same level of intensity. And while I can admire the energy and the commitment it takes to do that, I don't especially enjoy it. And I'm not trying to denigrate drag. I still do shows that are both burlesque and drag shows. I'm friends with drag queens. Like I appreciate the art of drag. I had my fill of it 15 years ago when I lived in New York. I kind of burned out on drag.
That's fair. I have sort of a different relationship with drag. which is that I fucking hate drag. I think it's awful. I understand that it is an art form and people are allowed to make art that I don't like, and that's fine. But I've never been to a drag show and had a good time because I always, and particularly like before I came out as trans, I was like, oh, okay, gender is a performance and should only ever be a performance, and this is the only way that I would ever be able to do anything which does not interest me at all, so I guess I'll just stay in the closet forever. Yeah, which was not the greatest feeling. But, and I do see what you're saying about this, but I actually did really like this performance. I mean, I think it also, like, it helps that she is not just, like, a cis man doing drag. Like, that's, I think the fact that, like, she is actually, like, come out as a trans woman helps me with that stumbling block, I guess. But also, as someone who, like, I am a classically trained singer and I have done a lot of like theater in my life, and before I transitioned I had all of these great like baritone villain roles that I loved doing. And like the biggest, like the saddest part of like transitioning, like every other aspect of my life is better now that I am a woman, but like the part I lamented, I guess, was like, I'm never gonna be able to like really like play a, you know, one of those really good meaty characters that I love playing in musicals. And then I saw this episode and it kind of like unlocked something maybe kind of draggy for me, which was like seeing her specifically using the low, I mean, we talked about voice training last week, but seeing her live in the space in between gender was really cool for me, and seeing her play a villain that was femme presenting but like not afraid to use her like deep guttural voice to get what she wants or whatever. I found a lot of beauty in that. But I can understand if you if you're already not, particularly if you've seen a lot of drag and you're not a fan of it. I am not a fan of it and therefore have not seen a lot of it, like, because I never was. Anyway,
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think the difference is that you probably saw less drag than me, but didn't find drag that you like. I suspect drag that you would like is out there and does exist. Whereas me, I probably saw a slightly bigger variety, but the commonalities in it, I still burnt out on.
Fair.
Even though, like, it's not like drag is only ever one thing, but most drag, it, like, part of why I moved to burlesque is I saw way fewer limitations on what was the correct and expected way to do it.
Yeah, like I feel weird being the cis person on this podcast being like, "Oh, I liked this." I do kind of see that cuz my as a pole dancer, my I wouldn't call it beef because I do enjoy drag performances, and but it does tend to be the same thing of drag performances, and actually I do kind of get this with burlesque performances. Of a limitation I see is it's always a bit, and that's the bit, like, as someone who like likes to, I've performed at burlesque shows, I've like performed at pole shows, it is always like the way to get on it is like I have a weird bit, and sometimes I want my bit to be, look at what I do with my butt here. This a cool trick right now, but I have to have like a costume and do a music that is a funny joke and be a reference to a Marvel movie in order to get on stage.
Yeah, I mean, I think like basically my problem with like the drag that I've seen has not been like necessarily in the execution, but like just kind of in the concept of it.
Like, and to what you're kind of saying back, because the thing that I do tend to like about drag is I actually do like the performance of femininity because that's something that I relate to. I don't know if I've said it on this podcast, but like I've said generally that my relationship to being a woman is I feel that I am a woman because I'm good at it. It is like I think that it is a thing that I am doing, and like if I weren't good at it or if I didn't like doing it, I wouldn't be a woman. Um, and as someone who technically from the state of Virginia, I was assigned male at birth due to a typo, so I had to spend a very long time arguing to defend myself, which did mean looking in the mirror. I was like, because the number of my friends who are trans is such that I had to really like I'm spending a lot of time arguing this. I cannot go back on this. I do want to say for like the Maestro performance here to what we were saying back of like it doesn't feel like she's playing a like she's not portraying a woman or like she's a woman playing a character, but that's not her playing a woman.
I believe
is
I believe in the beginning of the episode, she does say that she's a they them.
Yeah, like but more
Maestro's a they them.
so I when I first started training doing pole dancing, I actually started at a pole dancing cult, which was very fucked up, and they traumatized people and sent people like into psych wards because of the traumatic shit that they did. But part of their whole traumatizing and cult-like behavior is they had this thing called an erotic creature, which I always called a sex gremlin because I was not into the things that they were doing, but they were the cheapest one nearby. And that's what Maestro is doing. Like Jinx Monsoon it's less of a it is a sex gremlin performance. And be like, I am like, playing creature.
Like here's the thing that I'll say about this performance. It's that while I call it a very drag performance, I don't mean that in the sense of you would go to a drag show and see this. I'm just talking about like the drag energy that is brought to it. Right. And I because I will certainly grant that what she is not doing is a lot of what tends to burn me out quickly on drag, which is I see a lot of the same two kinds of drag, either big sparkly ball gowns, diva style, or the skinny ones who all do the dead drops and the splits. And she's doing neither of those things, but it is still that same energy. And I'm also kind of burnt on that. Again, like I think I did drag for way longer than I should have, especially because like it wasn't a great fit. It was like the best I could find because I wanted to like I'm a theater kid. Who could have guessed? But like I love to perform. And like that was what I found. But then finding burlesque and being like, oh, thank God. And just realizing that just how badly my sensibilities actually fit with drag. Especially at the time. I do want to stress that in terms of my actually being in straight up drag shows, this is like 15-year-old experiences. So hopefully like the scene has gotten a little bit better in terms of variety of voices and performances, but like I'm still burnt out from 15 years ago.
Yeah, I think that is a fair assessment. I do think that like it probably has expanded, at least from the levels of drag discourse that people are having are very Tumblr discourse things of like, I don't think this is a thing that happens in real life. I think this is maybe a thing that you made up to be mad about.
There's a reason I never really got on. I technically am on Tumblr. There's a reason I never really hung out there.
Seems like, I mean, look, the internet is a bad place where bad things happen, and we're all doomed and we're all gonna die.
It is something that it's not a great, like, it probably did bad things for my anxiety, but also made the real world less scary because it was like, oh, actually, no one will yell at you for that, for liking the show wrong. No one in real life cares all that much.
That is true. I also
it's one of the weirder experiences that I've had, like going to something like Gallifrey 1, is ending up having conversations with people who I am certain if they were leaving comments on my video would call me a slur. But who are, when you actually confront them in real life and they have to look you in the eye, are way more pleasant and are still disagreeing with me on a lot of stuff, but are not being assholes about it. It's shockingly hard for a lot of these people to actually be assholes to your face.
Yeah, because as someone who's met you in real life, I know that you could break me in half if you wanted to.
It helps to be 6 feet.
Yeah. You could also break me in half. I mean, I'm 6'2", but like definitely not a fighter. I'm just like, nobody hurt me. Well, maybe hurt me a little bit, if you know.
Consensually
hurt me. By the way, I hope you caught my solo show, Asexuality, the solo musical. I will say that because this is also Jinx Monsoon's first TV role that was not RuPaul's Drag Race. And she did do, like, she was in Chicago on Broadway before this, and so this is like very much a theater actor who is not necessarily like getting reined in by the like director and stuff. And like part of that is because I think they want it to be like big and insane,
like
over the top.
It like, does work as a through line of, because this whole scene is the bit of like the Maestro. I like this is the bit of Jinx is she, Maestro is they them. So they are the child of the toy maker. And I think that there is kind of a through line in that kind of big character portrayal. It is it's a very cartoony performance, which I enjoy, but it is something that is a bit, doing that in live action becomes kind of a weird performance. Particularly, it is just her doing it, and there's not a lot else in the actual set to build off of.
Well, because
so it's
also,
just
like,
her.
Neil Patrick Harris, like as the toy maker, has those big bombastic moments, and then he has like those smaller moments.
Yeah, he has those levels that Vera was talking about.
Yeah.
And also Jinx has like the set. The set also does a lot of like building around of like making like the rest of the scene is also very cartoony. Yeah. And this is kind of just, at least like in this scene, because I know in the opening with the piano that we'll talk about in 30 years when we get to that point, does have more kind of like showing like all weird magic stuff happening. But this is like just having her on a piano being insane.
In a black void. Yeah. I mean, like she's playing for the cheap seats, except there's a camera right in her face. So
I did really appreciate that the random number generator had the foresight to have the first clip from the musical episode of Doctor Who be like the black box theater scene. Like that's like, oh, okay. It's the Broadwater main stage on Santa Monica Boulevard. So it's a little shout out to the Hollywood Fringe Festival peeps in my viewing audience. Nobody knows anything about Doctor Who does theater except me. It's you and me, Vera. It's the two of us.
I haven't been in a play in ages. Last play I was in, I played a guy because I hadn't been on an HRT long enough to have tits yet. And I stuffed my hair under a flat cap, and
wow,
and I was in The Odd Couple. I was just one of the poker players in that. But that was the last time that I like properly was in a play. Because I was kind of sorta in one like a couple of weeks ago because my boyfriend and I went to a performance of The Show Goes Wrong.
Oh.
And I don't know how much you know about that one.
I don't know a lot about it, but I actually have a friend who's in a production of it right now.
it's a lot of fun, and just for audience, for the sake of this, you are going ostensibly to see a very bog standard, basic ass drawing room mystery play, except everything goes wrong. Starting with parts of the set start falling off, and then props are missing, and so they grab a different prop and pretended that it's the original prop, but then that prop's missing when they get around to needing that prop, so they have to pretend something else was the second prop that got taken to pretend it was the first prop, and stuff like that happens throughout it. It just builds. It is absurd. And one of the first things established is that there's supposed to be a dog. And somebody left the cage open and they can't find the dog. So during the intermission, the actor who is playing the sound person, so not the actual person running sound, just the actor who's pretending to be for the fake show you're watching, comes out into the lobby and is like, so we can't find Winston, and if anyone is willing to volunteer and sub in for the dog, put your name in that hat and we'll draw a name during the show. So I got to be the dog in the second act.
Amazing.
So that
counts.
Fun.
That still counts.
It counts, damn it.
I will say, so I premiered my solo show in 2022, but even then, for like the first 90% of it, I'm playing myself as a boy. I don't transition till the very end, because it's about like different stuff. It's about basically my like being asexual as like a man, or as someone who thinks they're a man, like trying to navigate the sort of expectations that are put on you as a man when you're...
Way to spoil the big reveal of your musical.
Yeah, I'm trans.
It's like the big climactic reveal is she comes out as a woman.
That's true. I mean, look, it says Rebecca on the poster. I don't think anybody's really surprised. So that was 2022. Before that, I had not been on stage in like 5 years, partially the pandemic, but also partially just all sorts of stuff. No, I think it was actually 2016 was the last play I was in. And it was a musical that somebody I know was like dramaturging for this guy. And it was about 9/11.
Is dramaturging like a fancy word for having a boner in a musical theater setting?
No, actually, it's a very specific branch of magic in D&D. If you are a wizard, you can specialize in dramaturgy.
Accurate. No, my understanding of dramaturgy is taking the script and making it not shitty, but like not putting your name on it as a writer. It's basically what. And look, the show.
It's the theater equivalent of a script doctor.
Yeah. The show itself was honestly a lot better than anyone thought it was gonna be, because it was a show about 9/11, and then apparently they took it to New York, where I don't think it went as well as
Did
I
it
can't
last
imagine
shorter
why.
or longer than Teeth the musical?
Probably shorter. I'm guessing shorter.
I'm
but-
sorry, what, the musical?
Oh, Teeth the musical? They made a musical of the movie Teeth. It was off Broadway. It is no longer anywhere, but they did release a cast recording.
Given my feelings about that movie in the first place, Jesus Christ.
I hope I never have to watch that movie, but I know from this podcast that it is inevitable. Mandy, will you show off your shirt for our viewing audience?
The relevant to Teeth, the castra vulva itself, the castration vulva. I spent a lot of time hand editing the C's in this A's using what little of my Photoshop experience I remembered. I cannot sell this shirt because I did not want to pay to have the font.
It's a great shirt.
It is very good. I need to get me one of those. I should have some Stitches in Time merch at some point.
That's I make merch, but just for myself.
That's actually kind of what I do. I do have one Stitches in Time t-shirt that's the only one of its kind that exists. And it's the TARDIS with costume elements of all of the modern doctors, which I actually really like.
I am wearing this shirt in front of Doctor Who people and them telling me, hey, your shirt is spelled wrong. And I tell them, I think I know how to spell vulva.
I'm looking forward to, I really hope they get here in time. I ordered ribbons for Gallifrey. Spoilers, we're recording this episode before Gallifrey 1. But I ordered ribbons for Gallifrey that just says Matt Smith as the first Doctor, and just to I just want to really watch people seethe. I want to make more enemies, because having only one enemy of this show is too few, I think.
I've talked a lot on this podcast, enough to think that we have more than a few enemies at this point. I'm a little afraid to be at Gallifrey 1.
Oh no.
Now that my opinions are publicly available.
That is true. People have... Look, I'm saying we need more enemies of the show, not specifically enemies of your hatred of Tom Baker. That's a different thing. But yeah, find us at Gallifrey 1 and kick us in the shins if you don't like our opinions.
Don't look for me. I'm not going this year. I can't afford it.
This episode will also be going out after,
in March.
So take a time machine and, against the express wishes of the purpose of this entire podcast, go back in time.
If anyone kicks us in the shins at Gallifrey, we'll know, and you'll be in trouble. Not for physical assault, but for time travel purposes.
It is weird because I'll go to other cons and maybe get recognized twice, and then I go to Gallifrey 1 and it's so much more. I'm like, right, all the Doctor Who nerds know who I am, and about a third of them hate me.
Well, I'm not one of the haters, because I'm gonna put this out in public, Vera, if you don't mind. You made me trans.
You're welcome.
It's a combination of you and Jodie Whittaker, because I watched her regeneration, and I was watching her thing, and I was also watching your YouTube channel a lot, and I was like, maybe there's more to this gender thing than I'm considering. Because at the time, I think you were they, them, and
I think it was all pronouns at the time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I was definitely oh, I can maybe be a little gender fluid or whatever. So I was that for 2 years, but didn't tell anyone. And then I was like, all right, fuck it. Girl.
Yay!
So thank you for that.
This is how trans recruitment works.
Yeah. I hope, hey, if anyone out there is watching this and this episode of the podcast specifically is making you trans, then leave us a 5-star review and tell us that you're trans now.
Leave a 5-star review and then pay it forward. You are required to trans somebody else's gender. Actually, ideally, if you could trans 2 people's genders and then each of them transes 2 people's genders.
Yeah, because then
that's how you have to keep the population growing. Because if you only do 1, then that's just the same numbers.
Well, and the more people's genders you have under you, the more you get from them. And it's a whole kind of I don't know what shape.
And the down line, and you gotta hit gold status, and that's how you get to go on the cruise.
Yeah, I mean, Vera knows I'm still paying my dues to you, and sure you're paying dues to whoever's fault it is that you're trans, and all this stuff. Like,
the trans pyramid scheme. Oh Lord.
Oh, the only other thing I wrote down for this episode is that Ncuti Gatwa's doctor is now the second character in Stitches in Time to canonically be called sexy.
And you might be bright and hot and timey-wimey.
After Idris.
I that was my suspicion.
Yeah. It's okay. We don't have to talk about that fucker ever again.
You called me sexy.
It's a great episode written by a fucking...
We do not need to talk about who wrote it.
Nope.
At all.
Nope.
Natsune Miku has done some great work over the years.
Oh my goodness. Anyway. I don't know if either of you have anything else about the episode itself. We've mainly been talking. We've talked so much about the episode specifically. That I can't imagine that there's anything we haven't hit on.
I will say that the reveal of, oh, I'm going to destroy music and that will destroy humanity, and then I can have the ultimate music, which is just white noise machine. Post-apocalyptic white noise machine.
I was basically gonna say, like, my problem with this scene specifically is that Doctor Who needs to stop threatening the entire universe. Like, the show does it way too goddamn much. Like, it's already a weird enough idea that music has been stolen and the world sucks now. That's enough!
Yeah.
Wanting to undo that is enough. Having this post-apocalyptic thing is like, God, you guys, you cannot stop yourself from putting a hat on a hat. God.
Yeah. Yeah, there is that. I think there is sort of like a TV showrunner mentality of like, how do we outdo ourselves this time? It's like, that's the wrong approach, I think, most of the time.
Given that the best episodes of that season had the most nebulous stakes.
Right. Yeah. What was your do you have a favorite episode of this season?
I go back and forth between 73 Yards and Dot and Bubble. I think in my official ranking, I think I put Dot and Bubble at the top, but like, depending on the day, I'll give you a different answer.
Sure.
Because I deeply love both of them.
Mm-hmm.
They're both excellent. I think 73 Yards is my favorite so far.
Yeah, I adore that. And like, I get why for some people it's very much not their jam. It's weird as hell, but it's weird as hell in a way that like I fucking love.
Yeah, like that is why it's good, because it's something completely wildly different from anything else.
Yeah. The thing I really liked about Dot and Bubble was like, it, like, because of who the main character is and then who she turns out to be at the end is like, oh God, I cared about this person. Yeah. Oh,
it is one of those. I love Dot and Bubble. I never want to hear anyone's takes from white people about Dot and Bubble, because I've heard there have been things I'm like, we're going to talk about technology and the future of AI and Dot and Bubble. Like, that's not what that episode was about.
No, it's not.
That's not what that episode was about, y'all.
But it really tricks you into thinking that's what that episode's about.
Yeah, like, I will grant you that. And like, when I did my review on it, I admitted flat out, like, I am ashamed of how long it took me to realize what the episode was about. But I did get there.
Yeah, and it's like, but I just love how raw that was of a premise of like, oh, we were going to go there and we're not going to do, like, part of it is, unfortunately, people kind of need the plot explicitly told to them.
Sure.
But just having that end bit of like, they don't need to say why they're not going with him.
Yeah. I also think like it was really, like, I think Ncudi's performance was really good in that ending moment because, like, you can see he's hurt, but, like, for, like, but I want to save you reasons, not for, like,
Yeah.
it's like, I'm not upset about being hated specifically, but, like, also, like,
And it's something that, like, they would kind of lampshade uh Jodie being a woman, but never really kind of actually did anything of like how she exists. This is very much a person realizing I exist differently in this world, and
Yeah.
I can't do the things that I did because of the way that the world will treat me.
That season has been weird, especially the more time has passed, because I think it was so weird because, like, I was more critical of some parts of it than other people were, including, like, the Devil's Chord. I felt like very out of step, being like, I don't super love this. And, like, Boom was good, but I also wasn't in love with that. But, like, all these people would, like, be at me on Twitter because I was still on there at the time. Fuck that site.
Yeah.
You know, or in my own comment section being like, oh, you're too negative. This is good. It's amazing. And those were the exact same people who, when the finale happened, have since decided the entire season was shit. I'm like, okay, hold on. Hold up.
Yeah. I can kind of get, because I definitely rated everything, like even the ones where it's like, oh, I feel kind of meh about. At the time, I was so incredibly hyped for them just because it was like, oh, Doctor Who is fun now. It doesn't feel like a chore to watch. This hasn't happened in so long that I don't feel like I'm doing a responsibility by watching my episode of Doctor Who.
That is true. And, like, it's also, like, I think a lot of episodes this season, and, like, I'm pretty much specifically talking about Space Babies, but, like, I really like that, you know, if you're gonna go weird, like, they really went for it, and, like, I get if that didn't work for you. I wasn't super thrilled about it, but, like...
Space Babies, I like Space Babies only in the sense that, like, yeah, Doctor Who needs to be stupid as shit sometimes. It just needs to be real dumb. And that episode, like, oh, that's exactly what I want. I want something exactly that dumb.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's an episode that is over maligned because it was the season premiere.
And it was not supposed to be. It was
no,
supposed to be
I don't think it should have
2.
been. But the other thing is, there being only 8 episodes.
Like everything needs to hit harder.
People get harsher. I think, like, if we were still getting 13 episodes a season, I think Space Babies would have been like, oh, well, this week wasn't great. We'll see what next week is. But when we're only getting 8, it feels like more of a sting.
Yeah.
My feeling that people don't like Space Babies is because it reminds them that this is a show for children. This is a family show.
This is a family show. And then we get to 73 yards.
Oh my god.
Like, that's the thing. I kind of push back on the notion that I don't push back on the notion that it's a family show. I do push back on the notion that it's a kid's show. I'm like, no, it's not.
Sometimes children can have a little existential terror as a treat.
Actually,
Neon Genesis Evangelion aired in the same time slot as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Sometimes we need to traumatize the children.
Stu Bagful, who's a friend of mine, he did a video not too long ago, sort of talking about this a little bit, and how when Doctor Who was first revived, the idea of it being a family show was kind of like what that meant at the time was that any given episode might kind of be for a different member of the family. Like, here's the one for the younger kids. Here's the ones for the pretentious teenager headed to university. Here's one for dad.
Like, kind of that general... I mean, the BBC does that generally, which I think is such an interesting concept of like, oh, we have to make things for the public, so everyone in the public has to be covered. But rather than do like if in the US, that would be we're going to make the most generic by the books, everyone has to like this. And the BBC is like, we're just going to make as much weird shit as throwing darts at a wall and someone will like this.
Yeah. They do. And we do. And it's Doctor Who. So I like every episode of Doctor Who. That's my actual hot take on Doctor Who.
Is that because you don't count the Zoom episode as an episode of Doctor Who? That's a web special.
Yeah, I guess that is sort of part of what I'm talking about. Oh my goodness. Vera, can I ask you maybe more of a personal question, and you can feel free not to answer if you don't want to. But where can people find you on the internet? Remind us.
Where can they find me on the internet?
Yeah.
Well, you can find me in two places, primarily. You can look for Council of Geeks. YouTube is the main thing that you're looking for there. I talk about Doctor Who, but also other geeky stuff, as well as, just queerness and queer representation. And there's, of course, Patreon is what actually pays the bills. There's the Break Room of Geeks, which is my secondary channel, which is unscripted and just whatever I've watched, played, listened to, or read lately. And I also stream on Twitch on Wednesdays and Fridays. Just whatever video game I have found that doesn't make me motion sick. And that's the geeky stuff. Oh, I didn't plug this last time. I have a novel called Dreams of Fire. It is a fantasy novel. It does have Nathaniel Wayne listed as the author. It's not a dead name. I'm not dysphoric about it. It's okay, I promise. But that has been out in several different paperback editions for a couple of years. And late last year, the audiobook finally came out.
Oh my goodness.
So that's available on Audible. So again, that's Streams of Fire. Nathaniel Wayne is listed as the author. It is a high fantasy electropunk fairy chase novel. So there's a fair bit going on. So that's the geeky stuff and my creative endeavors. If you prefer the spicy stuff, you can look for Vera Wylde. Wylde is spelled Wylde, and you will find content on YouTube and TikTok and Blue Sky, OnlyFans, many vids, and clips for sale.
Nice.
Can I ask a personal question?
Sure.
Do you do a podcast?
God damn it! I did forget that. I also do a podcast with Jesse Gender. We have left behind Babylon 5, the Jumpgate podcast. God. The Jumpgate podcast concluded. It is now the Frack This podcast. Same feed, rebranded as we work our way through the reboot of Battlestar Galactica, which Jesse has seen and I have not.
I did also have a question. So, backstory, when I was in high school, my dad bought a new TV that had a weird thing that it would pick up his neighbors on demand. And we know this because we could see it pause and rewind, which is how we got into the show Weeds and stuff, because one of his neighbors was watching it. But one of them, there was a news show, and they would just give news, but then also a woman would take her clothes off. Have you considered doing that for Council? You just redo the same Council of Geek, like you use the same script, you just like strip during it, because I think it would be a great time.
Oh my gosh.
I'll consider it.
And like just like kill two birds with one stone. I know you work hard on your episodes. You gotta get double duty on those.
I haven't done this in a while. I do have videos up on the OnlyFans that are like me messing around after I have signed off the video, and then I've messed around for the camera. in a way that will not go up on YouTube. But it's like got my same standard background and stuff.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us for these last 2 episodes. It's been so good to talk to you. And listeners, join us next week when we're going to be talking about the Day of the Doctor. And I will give you some kind of present if anybody can guess what part of Day of the Doctor we're talking about next week.
Tuesday.
Yeah, it's the Tuesday. That's the Day of the Doctor. It's Tuesday. All right.
Day of the Doctor on Titty Tuesday.
I think that's the name of your of the nude Council of Geeks.
Council of the Geeks.
All right, this is the end of the podcast now. I'm declaring it. Thanks for listening to Stitches in Time. Music by Becca McGlynn. Art by Mandy Akenda. Logo by Ben Patton. Produced by Becca McGlynn and Ben Patton. Please make sure to rate us and leave us a nice review. It helps new fans find the show.
Part of me really just wants the introduction for this one to be Becca saying, and this is Mandy, she's an ally. Ally!
Mandy, you're married to a trans person.
That's a real dedication to allyship right there.
Yeah, ally.
Which means a different combination of notes would banish you.
I said genius.
Let's make a podcast. As I say at the beginning of every episode, let's podcast.
We did everything resonates, Doctor dear. Every atom hums, and anything that plays a tune is
So, I'm sorry. The fact that, Becca, your screen played an ad for Amelia fucking Perez. I feel like I'm being stalked by that fucking movie.
Oh my god. Mandy and I watched it like a week
building
ago.
furniture?
It was the worst. Like, even aside from the terrible trans representation in it, it is a musical that clearly does not want to be a musical, but is like gritting its teeth and being like, I guess we're singing now. God
So
damn it.
we watched that after watching the Star Trek musical episode, which I don't know your opinion on that.
Episode.
I do not like that episode. I think that it is something that spends a lot of time explaining to you what the purpose of a musical is. Like, well, in a musical, people sing when they're extreme emotions. Like, oh, are you going to sing through your big dramatic moments? No, we're going to talk through those. But watch it in just like the steep decline. But Amelia Perez does kind of literalize, like, because in that Star Trek episode, it's, a thing happens and then everyone sings. But they're doing like big musical numbers. In reality, people would be singing like Amelia Perez, where they're just kind of muttering under their breath in a vague singing tone.
I won't dwell on this because by the time this comes out, I will have done 2 videos on this fucking movie. But like,
it's called promotion. Promote your videos.
Even more so than the fact that you can tell this was a trans character written by a cis man. You can tell even more it was written and directed by a man who had never directed a musical in his life.
Yeah.
But seems very judgmental about it and is like, oh, I'm going to do a better version. I'm going to, I don't know anything about it, but I'm definitely going to do a better job, which is, the general thing of like, I'm going to tell a better trans story. I'm going to tell a better story about Latinos. I don't need to research any of this.
He literally fucking said that. He literally did. He was asked about how much or how little research he did about Mexico, and he said,
didn't do any.
I didn't really do any. I knew everything I needed to do. Fuck that man. I know all the controversy is around the star right now. Fuck her too. But like, because like all the anger's on her right now, he is getting away with this. And I'm like, no! Fucking nail his ass! He sucks!
God damn.
We gotta move off this because I get so angry even thinking about that fucking movie.
I feel like we are so like this is United Healthcare CEO levels of like solidarity between like very like staunch Catholic Latinos and trans people of like, come together, everybody.
We can all agree this sucks.
That's
Yeah,
the only way we're gonna get anywhere in this world is with these weird, unlikely alliances, I think.
Men to woman, or woman to men.
Man to woman.
From penis to vagina.